Really excited to talk some Eagles here on today's show because that's what we do every single day year-round. The content, it never stops. Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, Chase Sr. here with you, taking your questions from all of the real ones and our loyal subscribers going into this Week 10 matchup on Monday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers. A huge game coming up for the EAGLES Eagles. Speaking of that game, we'll be live for a watch party right here on the show. We're going to do a longer pregame show, so catch us live, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock on the West Coast. We'll do an hour and 15-minute pregame show to set the stage for the game, and obviously we'll be live during the game and then after the game with the post-game reaction. It's the best place to experience an Eagles game day outside of being at the actual game, so let's continue to grow the Eagles Now empire. Join the movement. Lock us in and subscribe today. Let's get started with this one coming in from Bradley Hine, a $5 super chat. Most consistent and dedicated Eagles YouTuber. Keep it up. Thank you so much, sir. I'm beyond excited to see how the Eagles' new additions pan out. I have confidence going forward. Yeah, I can't wait to see how these additions pan out. Like for Jalen Phillips, has a lot of scheme familiarity with Vic Fangio. Back in 2023, he had 6.5 sacks in 8 games before he tore his Achilles. And his sack percentage was the highest that it's been in his career. And what Fangio did with Jalen Phillips back in 2023 on pass rush situations, he let him pin his ears back and get after the quarterback. Now, a recent development that I really like with Phillips is that he's rushed the quarterback from edge, but also defensive tackle, using his size, using his length and athleticism to impact the game in a variety of ways. When you're playing edge, it's a little bit easier to get acclimated quickly because you can get put on the field, right? And if Vic says, look, get after the quarterback on this play, that's all you have to do. For corners, the Eagles might have to ease these guys in a little bit slower just because it's so much more complex when you're playing corner compared to when you're playing edge rusher, because you really do have to read and react and know the system. There's communication that is more paramount on the back end compared to when you're playing defensive end. But for Michael Carter, he has played elite football in the slot. The Eagles are cross-training him to play a little bit of safety. For Jaire Alexander, had that bad PCL injury in 2024. I don't think he's the player who he once was when he was a 2-time second-team All-Pro, but a good veteran depth option at that cornerback spot. As far as your compliment, thank you so much, brother. There's not an Eagles content creator who creates more content than me. I do that because I have dedication. I do that because I have passion. I do that because I love this football team, and I've been a fan since I was 4 years old, just fresh off of having a binky in my mouth. Don Corleone, $2 super chat. What numbers do you think the new guys will wear? So this is a really good question of note. I'm doing this mailbag during our live show on Wednesday. The Eagles hit the practice field on Thursday. That's their first practice of the week, a little bit later than usual, just because they have a Monday game. And so they will practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll leave for Green Bay, Wisconsin on Sunday. Then they game on Monday night. Then they have a quick turnaround because the Detroit Lions come to the link Sunday Night Football in Week 11. So what numbers do I think the new guys will wear? I'll say this, there aren't a lot of good numbers for cornerbacks right now. Like Jacorian Bennett's number in the preseason, it was awful. I couldn't look at it. The numbers for pass rushers like Jalen Phillips, a little bit better. So we'll certainly see, but the Eagles have retired a lot of numbers, so it's slim pickings, especially for DBs. The Thunderhounds, do you think that we have a chance at getting Asante Samuel Jr. or Justin Simmons? I think the Eagles are good where they are right now. Obviously, Howie made the 3 trades in the lead up to the deadline. He has made 9 trades since the start of training camp. The deadline hit on Tuesday. I think the Eagles are in a good spot with where their roster is right now. They have Brandon Graham coming out of retirement to join them as well. And you think about any needs that the Eagles might have, I would say backup tight end along the interior offensive line. Howie did say when he talked this week that they really value cornerback depth, and that was certainly tested early in the year. Well, what did he do? He brought in Michael Carter via a trade and Jaire Alexander via a trade as well. And so I don't think the Eagles have much of a need at corner. I don't think they're going to show a lot of interest in Asante Samuel Jr. I'm rooting for him because he's a young player who's played really well. Justin Simmons, I think, would make some sense especially if there's an injury at the safety position, because Philadelphia is a little bit thin there. But I think what's been an underrated talking point about the Michael Carter move is that they're cross-training him at safety. But for Simmons, he, of course, played under Vic Fangio, was an all-pro under Vic Fangio, knows Christian Parker. Andrew Makuba has struggled a little bit in coverage, and he gives you a really good veteran presence. Brian Reed, Chase, what do you think Howie should do with Adoree Jackson? Bury him on the depth chart or just outright release him? Can't cover to save his life. Just my opinion. Anybody who watches this show knows I am not the biggest Adoree Jackson fan. And at USC, he was an electrifying playmaker. As a corner, as a return man, that's why he was a first-round pick by the Titans back in 2017. He was solid with Tennessee. He wasn't great. He goes to New York. He was solid, but he wasn't great. He's always been solid, but not great. With the Eagles, I think he's been just okay. What really rubbed me the wrong way is the Thursday night game against the Giants. Goal line situation. Cam Skattebo gets a handoff. Adoree Jackson comes off the edge, and he just tried the shoulder, Cam Skattebo. What are you doing? You're trying to shoulder down Cam Skattebo, who's one of the most difficult running backs to take down in the National Football League. You think that's going to work in a goal line situation? To me, that is soft. But what's crazy about Adoree is that I saw some of these numbers, and they really surprised me as far as his tight window percentage forced. So Sauce Gardner has faced the opponent's number one wide receivers on 45.5% of his coverage matchups this year. That's the NFL's highest rate. When targeted, he has a forced tight window that is less than 1 yard of separation at a 52% rate. That also leads the league a minimum of 20 targets. So he's at 52%. Pat Surtain is at 51.5%. Quinyon Mitchell is at 39.6%. Max Melton is at 39.5%. Guess who's at number 5? Adoree Jackson, 39.3%. Now, sometimes that's a weird analytical stat, but it does go to show you he's had some sticky coverage downfield. So again, I'm not the biggest fan because I think he plays soft, and I think the Eagles have what they have done with their moves has spoken volumes. They like Keely Ringo a little bit better. They traded for Michael Carter so that Cooper DeJean could play a little bit more on the outside. They traded for Jair Alexander because they don't know, and at the very least, he can give them a little bit more depth. But look, for what it's worth, I mean, I guess the tight window throws, he's forced a high percentage of them. By the way, there was a sneak peek into the Eagles locker room. Again, we'll know what the Eagles jersey numbers are for the new players coming up here soon when they hit the practice field on Thursday. This video is going to come out after that. Jair Alexander, I think, is going to wear number 18. Hopefully he plays better than Jalen Reagor. Andrew Nathan, Ski Mask Howie with the profile picture. I love it. The Eagles still need to make a few more roster spots. Safe to assume Dillon and Jackson get cut eventually. Your thoughts? How many snaps does Jahad Campbell get on Monday night now that we added Brandon Graham and Jalen Phillips? So that's something that I talked about this week on the show as well. And going back to Adoree Jackson, to that other question that came in, he could get cut because the Eagles have a couple of decisions to make. Now, one roster move they already made is taking Patrick Johnson off the active roster. They added him to the practice squad on Wednesday. That made room for Nolan Smith. But they've got some roster Tetris that they have to figure out here. And players like A.J. Dillon, Adoree Jackson, they could be the ones who get let go. A player like Matt Pryor is a player who could also be cut. Keep an eye on that. More roster moves will have to be made for the Philadelphia Eagles. As far as Jahad Campbell goes, he played more edge and his snaps went down because he played at edge because the Eagles were so thin there. Obviously, they brought in a lot of reinforcements. Nolan Smith back, Brandon Graham out of retirement, traded for Jalen Phillips. I think he's going to go back to more so playing off-ball linebacker. But Nakobe Dean has played really well. And so this is a tough thing for Vic Fangio to manage. How does he manage the snaps for Nakobe Dean and for Jahad Campbell? Because Nakobe Dean, especially against the run, which has been a little bit of a weakness this year, is so smart, so heady, a good run defender, and he helps the Eagles defense out a lot in that regard. But Jahad Campbell has also had a really good rookie season. More of your questions coming up, but let's get to our sponsor for today's Philadelphia Eagles now, our friends at Ridge. They have a great deal that you need to take advantage of. This wallet, it is incredible. And it's so practical. It's sleek in design. It's so durable. This might be the last wallet that I ever get because of the materials that it's made with. And this can hold up to 12 cards, and it's thinner than my iPhone. And right now, you can get a great deal for a limited time. Ridge is having their huge Black Friday sale. Head to ridge.com/chat. Get up to 47% off your order. This is by far the biggest discount they've had all year. That's ridge.com/chat for up to 47% off your order during their biggest sale of the year. After you make your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them why we sent you. Now, before I had this Ridge wallet, I had a huge leather wallet. It got so fat and heavy, and I'm somebody who hates having too much in my pockets because it really isn't practical. So with Ridge, they are unique, they are slim, they are modern. And Ridge took their game-changing wallet, they made it even better with the Ridge 2.0, the most refined version of the Ridge wallet. They've been perfecting this thing for 12 years. It's 10% lighter. Every gram matters in the Ridge Wallet 2.0. They found the perfect balance, made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber. They have 50 plus colors and styles to choose from. You can even get a wallet that features every NFL, MLB, or college team. And how about the Eagles wallet? That's awesome too. This is perfect for a stocking stuffer, holiday gifting, especially since Ridge is having their biggest sale of the year right now. Over 100,000 five-star reviews. That is proof that Ridge is a gift that people love to receive. We're approaching 140,000 subscribers here on Eagles Now. It's proof that we do a damn good job giving you Eagles content. Same can be said for Ridge as well. Obviously, they're not just about wallets. They create premium everyday carry essentials like key cases, suitcases, and their game-changing power bank. So again, 47% off ridge.com/chat. Get that Eagles wallet. You will not regret it. Mike Nintendo Master, one of our most valued viewers here on Eagles Now, with a good question here. Will Saquon be good for fantasy owners, or should they have traded him so that the Eagles can win? Look, never going to trade Saquon Barkley, right? They gave him that contract extension after last year. That's another reason why Howie and Jeffrey Lurie are awesome, why they're a model organization, because they realized that Saquon, with what he did last year, his value to the team on the field and off the field exceeded what his previous contract was. And they realized he became underpaid. So what did they do? They ripped it up. They gave him a new deal. And they said, thank you for what you did in 2024. But it was also a message. We really value you as a person, as a leader, as a team captain, and as a player on this football team. Now, I've talked about this a lot here on the show. Why was Saquon struggling all year up until week 8 when he had a $150 on the ground and 2 total touchdowns against the Giants? It wasn't him. It wasn't the Madden curse. For me, it was an offensive line problem. That was evidenced by the yards before contact per carry. It was down a full 2 yards from 2024 to 2025. He's looked great to me. He's looked very explosive. You saw that against the Giants. In the pass game this year, he's also been very dynamic. I think that he's looked great this year. I think it's been an offensive line problem and an execution problem. The Eagles fixed those things against the Giants. Hopefully that is a sign of things to come. Usually the Packers this year have been a good run defense, but Rico Dowdle gashed them. Can the Eagles look at that Panthers film and say, they found something, let's duplicate that, and can Saquon have success on the ground? Obviously that'll help out a lot of people's fantasy teams. Nintendo Master, we'll see. Carol Hosey, what are your recommendations on future moves? So the trade deadline has passed, and so you can't make any more trades. As far as free agency signings, if there was one that I would think about making, Justin Simmons at safety to give you more depth there and a veteran presence in case you have some concerns about the youth at that position with Andrew Makuba getting a lot of time. And then Sidney Brown, I just don't think the Eagles really trust him all that much. If there's another move that I would make, if you have concerns about the interior offensive line, it would be for a player like Brandon Scherf. Now, Carol, if you're talking about free agency next year and the draft, I mean, I think a need on this roster could be tight end if the Eagles don't bring back Dallas Goedert, but man, he's having a career year and he is so valued as a blocker. But with how he's played this year, has he outpriced himself in free agency? Potentially for a team looking for one of the top all-around tight ends in football and a dynamic weapon. If the Eagles want to get younger and get a player who maybe is more durable at tight end, maybe they draft a tight end pretty early in the draft next year. You know that Howie is always going to look along the offensive line. Do you try to find Lane Johnson's replacement? Do you look for a right guard if you're not that confident in Tyler Steen? I think you're good at corner, but you can maybe use another depth piece there who's young and on a cost-controlled contract. You might lose Nakobe Dean. Do you look after another linebacker? Edge rusher, obviously always a position. So those are kind of the spots that I'm looking at. If you let Jahan Dotson go, if you entertain trading A.J. Brown after this year, which I would never do, Eagles fans, relax. I'm not recommending that they do that, but it could be a thing. Do you try to reset financially at wide receiver and draft a stud wide receiver? Again, these are things that NFL teams think about. Bradley Hine, another one here. Who is your biggest threat in the NFC in your opinion? I think the NFC is wide open. Let me say this. This might surprise some people, but I watch every NFL team, and I keep tabs on every NFL team. With the way that they are playing right now, I think the Seattle Seahawks are the scariest team in the NFC who could be the biggest threat to the Eagles. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Their offense is very creative. Sam Darnold is playing really well. Jackson Smith-Njigba leads the NFL in receiving yards. Torrey Horton, a rookie, has played really well. They just made one of the more underrated but one of my favorite moves at the NFL trade deadline, trading for Rashid Shaheed. He's one of the more electrifying, underrated playmakers in the NFL. So now you have a vertical threat who's on pace for more than 1,000 yards playing for a bad Saints team on that team. Mike McDonald is very exotic and creative with how he calls that defense. He's one of the top defensive minds in football. So I just look at Seattle as a very complete team. And if they can figure out their ground game, they're scary. And the Eagles have always struggled against Seattle for whatever reason, whether it be with Russell Wilson or not. I think Detroit is in that conversation. I think Green Bay is in that conversation, but they're a little bit inconsistent. Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers are scary, but I do wonder with all of the injuries that they've had along the offensive line and at receiver, if they can have sustained success. You beat the Rams, but they were bludgeoning the Eagles in that first half. You obviously worry about them. The Niners, they didn't make a move for a pass rusher, so I'm dropping them out of being a team that I think could make a statement in the NFC. So it's wide open, but when the Eagles play their best ball, I think they're the best team in the NFC. Cheryl, who do you think the best trade was? I think giving up 2 1s for a cornerback is way too much. I get that the Colts had a need there, but that's just a price I wouldn't be willing to pay. I like Quinnen Williams as a player, but I just don't understand what Dallas is doing because I don't think they're close to really being a serious threat. They're going to have to just knock it out of the park in free agency next offseason in order to be a legitimate team, but they haven't been aggressive in free agency. I really like what the Saints did, trading for Rashid Shaheed. I think that is a move that can make that offense even better. What the Seahawks did in primetime against Washington, that kind of brought back memories of what the Eagles did with Michael Vick against Washington on Monday Night Football on ESPN, where they just annihilated them. And the Seahawks were up 28-0 or whatever in that first half. Like, it was such a dominant, impressive performance where you watched that game and you said, wow. And now they add Rashid Shaheed to that offense with that great defense. That's probably my favorite move. Who you got Monday Night Football? We round out our mailbag with that. PHI for the Eagles, GB for the Green Bay Packers. Let your voices be heard. Get those predictions in.